5 fish counters, 5 grades, and I am going to tell you up front what I am not doing. I am not naming shops. One man walking into a name store on one afternoon and handing out a letter is not a study. It is an anecdote wearing a lab coat, and I am not going to sell you that. What I am grading is 5 kinds of counter, and you will know within about 4 seconds which kind yours is. Here is my claim, and I want you to hold me to it. The most expensive counter on this list does not win, the cheapest does not lose, and the one that beats all 4 of the others is a shop most of you have driven past for years. 7 items. 2 my trade will not thank me for. Good. Nothing to buy at the end of this. Here is number 1. Number 1. The rubric before any grades, so you can argue with me on the same terms I used. 6 things. The first is whether there is a whole fish anywhere in the case. Head on, because a shop that carries whole fish is a shop where somebody knows how to handle one. The second follows from it, which is whether anybody on the premises actually breaks a fish down, or whether everything arrives already cut in a box from a plant several states away. Third, read the sign and see whether it names a species or a category. Cod is a category. Pacific cod is a species. The gap between those 2 words is the gap between a shop that knows what it bought and a shop that ordered whitefish. Fourth, look at whether the origin card is filled in rather than left blank or reading simply imported. Fifth, ask a person which morning it landed and pay attention to how long the answer takes rather than what the answer is. And sixth, if you can, walk past at closing time and look at the ice. A case that still looks abundant at 6 in the evening is a case that did not sell today. Every one of those 6 is a proxy for the same underlying quantity, and I will name it once the grades are in. Number 2, the warehouse club. B-, and that will annoy some of you. It fails half my rubric outright. There is no whole fish anywhere on the premises. Nobody in that building has ever broken one down, and there is no person you can ask what day anything landed, because the answer lives in a distribution center you will never see. But look at what it gets right, because those things are not small. It names the species rather than the category, and it names the origin, and at least one of the big clubs prints in its own product description that the fish was previously frozen and thawed and ought to be cooked within a day or 2. That is a shop volunteering the fact that most competitors work hardest to keep quiet. And then there is the pallet. A club moves an amount of fish in a morning that a good independent moves in a month. Nothing sits. There is no slow Tuesday where a fillet lingers under a light hoping somebody wants it because the whole box is gone by lunch. What you cannot get there is anything except a boneless, skinless rectangle in 4 species. No frames, no heads, no collars, no cheeks. It is a narrow offer, competently executed, honestly labeled, and quickly turned. Number 3, the national supermarket chain, C-. This one has an advantage nobody uses. Federal law obliges a full-line grocer to post the country of origin and whether the fish was wild or farmed on a card in the case where you can read it. Of the 5 counters in this video, this is the one carrying that legal duty, and almost every customer walks straight past the card without looking down. Then the grade falls off a cliff. Nothing arrives whole. It comes in pre-cut and portioned from a plant that may be 1,000 miles away, so there is nobody in the building who has broken a fish down, and consequently no frames, no heads, and no offal of any kind. The signs tend to name categories rather than species, which is how you end up with a card reading whitefish. Testing supports the shape of that. When a university class in North Carolina bought fish across 10 counties and ran the DNA, exactly 1 grocery chain out of 4 came back labeling correctly, but the thing that actually decides the grade is the ice at 6 in the evening. A supermarket case is merchandised to look abundant all day, which is another way of saying it is stocked deeper than it sells. Number 4, The premium regional grocer, the one with the good reputation, and the parking problem, C plus. And I want to be clear that it scores well on almost everything. There are whole fish in that case. Somebody in the back knows how to break one down and will do it for you. The signs name species and frequently name the boat. There is a real person behind the glass who will talk to you for 10 minutes about a piece of halibut and who can usually tell you which morning it came in. 5 of my 6 checks comfortably passed. Then you walk past at 6 in the evening and the case still looks like a photograph. Crushed ice built up into ridges, everything misted and glistening, parsley placed by hand, and roughly the same quantity of fish in there as at 9 that morning. That is the whole grade. Presentation is what that shop sells, and presentation costs money, and the money goes on to the price, and the price suppresses the volume. A counter that charges $32 a pound moves less fish than one charging $9, and moving less fish is the single worst thing a fish counter can do. The prettiest case in your town is very often holding the oldest fish in it. Number 5, the independent fishmonger. B plus, and this is my own kind of shop, so I am going to be harder on it than you might expect. The ceiling here is higher than anything else on this list. A good independent buys off boats directly, can tell you the vessel and the tide, carries whole fish because whole fish is what arrives, and will cut anything you ask for, including the parts nobody prices. On a Thursday morning in July, the best fish in your county is behind that glass. Now, the 2 things nobody mentions. The first is that an independent fish market, which does not also sell produce, is legally exempt from the origin labeling a supermarket has to provide. The shop with the strongest reputation for honesty is the one under the weakest obligation to prove it. The second is variance, and it is enormous. A chain has a floor underneath it, set in an office by somebody who does not want a lawsuit. An independent has no floor at all. The best fish sold in America and the worst fish sold in America are both sold at counters exactly like the one I stood behind. Add that it is largely a coastal privilege and that a good one is shut on Mondays because nobody fishes Sunday and the grade settles where it settles. Number 6, the Asian market, the Caribbean market, the Mexican grocery on the edge of town. And it is not close. Whole fish everywhere, most of its species the other 4 counters have never stocked. Live tanks holding crab and clams and fish still swimming. Somebody will scale, gut, and fillet whatever you point at to your specification for nothing. Every check on my rubric passed without effort. But the grade is not really about any of that, and I want to name the actual mechanism rather than leave you thinking it is about atmosphere. It is the customers. These are shop-serving people who grew up on coastlines, who were taught to look at a gill before they were 10, and who will put a fish back down and walk out if the eye has gone flat. A shopkeeper cannot fool that room. So the case empties every day because nothing substandard survives contact with the people buying it. The quality is coming from the wrong side of the glass. It is not the management being virtuous. It is a clientele that refuses 2 honest cautions. Language can be a genuine barrier if you need to ask something specific, and the range is wide enough that if you do not know what you are looking at, you will stand there for a while. Number 7. Only one thing on that rubric actually matters, and the other 5 are guesses at it from outside. Turnover. How fast the fish leaves the building, that is the entire quality of a fish counter, and everything else I told you to look at is a way of estimating it from the customer side of the glass. Whole fish means a shop confident it will sell them. A filled-in origin card means somebody handled a real invoice this morning. A staff member who knows the landing day knows it because the fish is not there long enough to forget. Price tells you nothing. Certification tells you nothing about the fillet in front of you today. A friendly fishmonger is pleasant and is not evidence. And here is the part I have to own. For 34 years, I was judged on how that case looked at 9 in the morning. Nobody ever walked in at closing and asked me what had left the building, so I ordered deep, because a full case sells and a thin one looks like a shop in trouble, and a deep order guarantees that some of it sits. Every fish manager in this country is under the same pressure, and it points them in exactly the wrong direction. Let me give you all 5 grades in one breath. The Warehouse Club, B-, narrow and honest and fast. The national chain, C-, legally obliged to tell you the most and structurally unable to sell you much. The expensive regional grocer, C+, 5 checks passed, and the only one that mattered failed. The independent, B+, highest ceiling on the list and no floor underneath it. And the Asian or Caribbean or Mexican market, A, carried there by its customers rather than its management. Which leaves one thing worth saying about the whole exercise. You cannot buy your way to a good fish counter. You can only buy your way to a good-looking one, and those are not the same purchase, and the price on the sign is very often paying for the difference. So if you remember nothing else, replace the entire rubric with one question at the glass. Ask which day it lands. You are not really asking about the delivery. You are asking when that case empties. And everybody behind the counter understands the difference, even if nobody says so out loud. A woman asked me that once in 1998, and I told her Tuesday and Friday mornings. She came on Tuesdays and Fridays for 9 years. So tell me in the comments where you are watching from and which of the 5 your own shop is. And if somebody older than you had a way of judging a counter from the doorway, put it down there, because those are the ones I read twice. Next time I am going to give you the 12-month calendar, what to buy in each one, and the single month of the year when almost everything behind that glass is worse than usual for a reason. Nobody at the counter will explain to you,